Chapter 5. Babies with no heartbeats. The grief. Nobody gave us permission to name. Right. Before we go any further, I need to address something. The family gatherings. You know the ones. The ones where somebody's baby is doing something spectacular. Crawling, walking, saying their first word, being generally magnificent in the way that babies are. And the whole room collapses into joy and photographs, and the kind of collective delight that fills a space so completely you can almost forget you are standing in it. And there you are, smiling, holding the baby if asked, making the right noises at the right moments, genuinely happy for them because you are a good person and you genuinely are. And also, there is a very specific expression that your face has learned to make. It is the expression of a woman who is absolutely fine. It is a masterpiece of performance art. It deserves a standing ovation. It has never once fooled your body, which has been keeping score this whole time, knows exactly what that smile is costing you. This chapter is about that cost and about everything else nobody gave us a language for. First, we are going to name all of it, because one of the most violent things that happens to women around this particular grief is the silence around it, the minimizing, the rushing past, the cultural instruction to move on, move forward, be grateful, stay positive, try again, trust the process. Everything happens for a reason. We are not doing that here. We are going to name every version of this grief, every face, every form, because every single one of them is real. Every single one of them matters. And every single woman carrying any version of this deserves to have it named out loud before we go anywhere else. The miscarriage, the pregnancy that started and then didn't continue. Sometimes early, so early that the world said it barely counted, as if the size of the loss can be measured in weeks, as if the love started only after a heartbeat was confirmed on a screen. The miscarriage that happened at home, alone, in a bathroom, with no ceremony and no witness, or in a hospital room where someone was kind and someone wasn't. And the whole thing felt both medically managed and completely untethered from reality simultaneously. The miscarriage that was followed by another, and another, the body that tried and tried, and the heart that tried alongside it, and the particular exhaustion of hope that keeps being asked to reset, the miscarriage that nobody knew about except you and possibly one other person, that you went back to work on Monday and nobody knew, that people complained to you about trivial things, and you listened and nodded, and the whole time you were somewhere else entirely. The stillbirth, the baby who was real, who had a name, who had a room being prepared and clothes being washed, and a whole future being imagined in precise, loving detail, who arrived and did not stay. The grief that is so enormous that language genuinely cannot contain it, that people don't know what to say, and so sometimes say the wrong thing. At least you know you can get pregnant. She's with God now. At least it happened before you really knew her. And you have to hold their discomfort alongside your own devastation, because grief makes people uncomfortable. And you have somehow ended up managing that too. The body that went through labor for a baby who would not cry. The arms that knew, before the mind could fully process it, that something was wrong. The going home. Without, this grief does not have a timeline. It does not resolve. It is carried. The infertility, the trying, the monitoring, the charting, the temperature taking, the timed intimacy that stops feeling like intimacy and starts feeling like a medical procedure with emotional consequences. The tests, the results, the terminology that turns your body into a series of measurements and probabilities, the treatments, the injections, the hormones that rearranged your emotional landscape so completely that you barely recognized yourself, the waiting rooms, the other women in the waiting rooms, each of you carrying your own private story, none of you making eye contact, all of you understanding everything, the failed cycles, each one its own small death, each one requiring you to grieve and reset and try again, or decide to stop trying, both of which are acts of enormous courage. The moment of deciding to stop, which is not giving up, which is one of the bravest, most self-aware, most loving decisions a person can make, and which is followed by a grief that the world does not always recognize, because there is no clear loss event, no date, no before and after, just the quiet closing of a door that had been standing open for a very long time, the termination, the decision made in impossible circumstances, alone sometimes, or with a partner who was present in body and somewhere else entirely, or in a relationship that was not safe, or because the diagnosis came back with news that broke your heart, while it saved you from a different breaking, the decision that was the right decision, and that you have never fully been allowed to grieve, because to grieve it publicly is to invite judgment, and to grieve it privately is to carry it completely alone. The silence around this particular grief is its own violence. You are allowed to grieve it. You are allowed to grieve it without apology, without justification, without having to explain yourself to anyone. The grief is real. The love was real. The loss is real. The child lost after birth. The baby who came home and then didn't stay. The infant loss. The illness that arrived without warning. The accident. The loss of a child at any age. Because there is no age at which losing a child becomes less than the end of the world as you knew it. The siblings who grieve and are told to be strong for their parents, who absorb the grief of an entire household and file it somewhere internal and carry it for decades, the grandparents, the extended family, the communities that lose a child and never quite fully recover their original shape. This grief does not stay inside one body. It ripples, it moves through generations, it changes people in ways that don't always get a name. The African immigrant dimension, because we have to name this specifically. In many African cultures, childlessness is not simply a personal grief. It is a social status, a communal concern, a matter that is discussed at family gatherings, at church, at community events, with a directness that would be considered deeply inappropriate in Western contexts and is simply considered normal in others. The woman who cannot have children in these contexts is not only grieving privately, she is managing a public narrative about her worth, her femininity, her standing in the family, her standing in the community. She is receiving advice from elders. She is being prayed over. She is being told which doctor to see, which herb to try, which relative had the same problem and what fixed it. She is doing all of this while also quietly holding a grief that has no socially sanctioned expression, in a context where the community feels entitled to her reproductive journey. The weight of this is specific, it is additional. We are naming it here. For every woman who has received the question at a family gathering and answered it with a smile that cost her something. For every woman who has been prayed over without her consent. For every woman who has been made to feel that her body is a failure in a communal space where she was supposed to be celebrated. We see you. This chapter is for you too, with every bit of it. What this does to the body. Grief is not only emotional, it is physiological, it is neurological, it is cellular, and the grief that has no official name, no ceremony, no socially mandated processing time, is some of the most dangerous kind. Because unnamed grief doesn't go anywhere, it stays. When grief is not processed, the brain continues to register it as an active threat. The nervous system stays in low-grade fight or flight. Cortisol remains elevated. Over time, this shows up as chronic inflammation, disrupted immune function, sleep disturbance, digestive issues, depression and anxiety that seem to have no clear cause, a flattening of emotional range, the protective numbness that comes when the system has been managing too much for too long. Research on perinatal grief specifically shows that women who experience pregnancy loss without adequate support show the same physiological grief markers as women who lose adult first-degree relatives. The nervous system does not assess the size of the loss by weeks of gestation. It assesses it by the depth of the attachment, the intergenerational dimension. Epigenetics is the science of how experience changes the way genes are expressed and how those changes can be passed to the next generation. The grief we carry in silence does not stay in us alone. It moves forward. This is not a reason for shame. It is a reason for urgency. Processing our own grief, naming it, healing it, integrating it, is not a self-indulgent act. It is one of the most profound gifts we can give to the people who come after us. Whether those people are biological children, the children we mentor, or the communities we build. Healing is intergenerational, whether we intend it to be or not. So is unhealed. My babies don't have heartbeats. I want to pause the framework for a moment and be personal with you. My babies don't have heartbeats. I tried the path. I really did. I broke down trying to become what everyone else seemed to become so naturally. I grieved it, properly, ugly cried and everything, the kind of crying that is not photogenic and does not resolve in a montage. The kind that takes as long as it takes, and then eventually, not quickly, not neatly, not in a way that looks like healing is supposed to look. I made peace with it because I realized something. My babies just don't have heartbeats. The N.I.T.T.I Framework is going to London. My father's legacy lives on a website built from love. My mother Judith's story, 74 years of courage, is being told through books, audio, and media. The music, the books, the podcasts, the frameworks that have helped people heal. The sessions at 2 a.m. when someone needed to be seen and I showed up. The communities built from nothing but care and a refusal to leave people behind. These are my children, every single one of them. And just like yours, they need showing up for. They need someone to say, I see what you are building. I am proud of you. I am proud of you. How is the work going? They are not a consolation prize. They are the thing I was always supposed to build. I just had to stop looking at the door, long enough to see what was already in my hands. You are not childless. You are child different. I want to retire a word, the word childless, not because the grief it points to isn't real. It is. But because the word itself is defined entirely by absence, by lack, by what is not there. And that framing is not only inaccurate for many of the women listening to this, it is actively harmful. You are not childless, you are child different. What you birth matters, every single piece of it. Motherhood is not a biological category. Motherhood is love made into action. It is the consistent, faithful, showing up practice of caring for something beyond yourself, of building something that carries your love forward. The woman who mentors the young girl who goes on to change everything, she is a mother. The woman who writes the book that finds someone at 3 a.m. when nothing else does, she is a mother. The woman who builds the community that gives people a place to land, she is a mother. The woman who holds the space, carries the story, preserves the culture, shows up for the people who have nobody else showing up. She is a mother. What you build matters. Who you love matters. What you pour yourself into matters. What continues because you existed matters. This is not a consolation prize. This is not a second best life. This is your life, chosen, built, fully yours. The full N.I.T.T I walk through. Now we do the work. Name it. Say the thing out loud. All of it. Every part of the grief. not the managed version, the real one. Investigate it. Look at the layers underneath. What else is grief carrying here? What story have you been telling yourself? What does this grief say about what you love? Tame it. Work with the nervous system, the triggers, the body sensation, the breathing, the grounding, the permission to feel it without being consumed by it. Transform it. Not the silver lining, not the lesson, the question, given that this is the story. Who do you choose to be inside it? Integrate it. Make it part of your story. Rather than the interruption of your story, find the ritual, find the community, find the language. Keep naming it. Keep refusing the instruction to be quiet. The workbook exercises are in the book. Take your time with them, every single step. Before we close, you are not less. You are not behind. You are not incomplete. You are building differently, and building differently takes more courage than following the blueprint. The grief is real. The love is real. The life you are building is real. All of it at the same time. Class dismissed. With love, Coach Jackie, XOXO.